What sort of hardware are you running in the RV though?
Oh, I run a lot of stuff in the RV. So I use Shelly ones to control 12-volt lights because remember I said earlier, everything's got to have a physical switch for my family, right?
Yeah.
So the Shelly ones are fantastic. I just stuff them in the wall and the light switch will control the Shelly ones. So I probably got, I don't know, a dozen of them in the camper. They fit in the wall behind the other switches. So that works out pretty nicely. I have a bunch of Zigbee sensors, so I torment my family with the random messages scolding about letting in the bugs and things like that. So I use Zigbee sensors in the camper for that, just because they tend to be a smaller, shorter range. They tend to work out a little bit better. But I use mostly Akara for the motion sensors, temperature sensors, water sensors, and door sensors. So I do have leak alarms in the rig. So if there's a water leak, and I've had them in the past, so this is kind of built out of need. But if the water sensor goes off, for example, it'll set off an alarm internal. I've got a little 12-volt alarm that'll go off, and it'll kill water to the camper. I use a link tap sprinkler controller to run the main water feed into and out of the camper. So this way, again, if I trigger a water alarm, it'll kill water to the camper, and that's already saved my bacon twice. So I'm pretty happy with that. Yeah,
paid for itself then.
How do you deal with in the camper power fluctuations, or is it typically plugged into shore power and then you take it out when you're going somewhere, or like is that a
Yeah, so it's largely so up until literally last week, we've been largely a seasonal camper. So we've been plugged into shore power. We haven't really had to worry about that too much. Last week, I was able to get a truck so we can actually, take the trailer to different places. But I do the way that the converters and the rigs work is you're largely running off the battery, even if you're plugged into shore power. So the converter will charge the battery, and then you draw off the battery. So I do have 12-volt regulators in the rig so that I'm always, regardless of the state of the battery, I'm getting at least reasonably clean power. I did find that a couple of the Shellys didn't like when the voltage got north of 14, so that became a problem. But so I do have reasonably clean power there. I do have two batteries in the rig also, so that'll let me know what's going on. And I have the wall outlet, so the shore power connection to the post has was it the Bulldog power monitor station? So it's like a surge protector line cleaner that is hooked into Home Assistant as well. So when that reports no power or a fault or whatever, it'll send me a message. So I can lose shore power. My Home Assistant stuff will be running off the 12-volt side, and it'll send me a text message or a notification that shore power is out. And then once voltage gets to a certain point, it'll start shutting stuff down.
Okay. So. And then when you like you said, you transported it last week or whatever recently.
Yeah, I recently got the ability to do that, but yeah, so.
Yeah, and when you do that, is it just you shut everything down and then you move it across, or is it that it still runs on the power while you transport it, and then that way you still have connectivity and comms, whatever?
So it'll run while the unit's in transit. So it'll run, it'll get enough battery off the truck that's towing it. So the batteries won't peter out, which is kind of interesting because I have the router that I have in it does GPS, serial GPS messaging. So you can pull up the map and see where it is anywhere in the US. I still haven't gotten, I guess, enough votes in the Home Assistant world to allow for dynamic weather, for changing the home location for weather dynamically, automatically yet, but that'll be kind of cool once that comes.
I thought they did have that. Well, I know there was a few RV users that you could change your home location dynamically.
You can change your home.
Oh, it doesn't work for the weather component then.
Correct.
Gotcha.
So I cheat. I actually use automation. I use Windy. So what I do is I store all of I use a lot of MQTT with my ESP Home and Node-RED. I store at MQTT. So as it moves, it updates the MQTT information, and then that builds a dynamic dashboard out of Windy. So it actually will give me the weather in Windy, but it won't give me the weather forecast native to Home Assistant. There's got to be a way to do it. Probably wouldn't be considered normal.
Is there a template weather component? I'm wondering, or an MQTT weather provider? I'm wondering if you could then just build out a weather platform over MQTT, right?
I wonder if you could just make a service call to update the GPS, right? It should be just a API. Sorry, take the GPS coordinates and then dump it into the weather component.
Well, I haven't been able to do it in the weather component, at least not as far as I know so far. We run a Facebook group called DIY Smart RV, and it's mostly home assistant folks that are trying to figure, things that are very specific to RVs. And that's one that we haven't quite been able to figure out yet. Well, we have been able, obviously, with the API, or with the service call rather, we can take the GPS coordinates and change the home location of Home Assistant dynamically. So that works out really well. I used to have that integrated with my electronic door locks, so that when I came into the campground, as soon as I showed up his home, it unlocked the door, so that when we got there, the air conditioning was running and all that other stuff. So, we've done some neat stuff there. But the weather is the part that I think there's a lot of folks that would like to see happen.
I've just checked. There is a template weather provider in Home Assistant. So assuming you can, expose, windy as an entity, you could then probably build out, okay, look at this entity for the temperature, look at this entity for the forecast, and then you would have a native, weather.rv, and it would just pull in from those other sensors that windy gets updated from. So
the way we update Windy is we just pull the web page and we plug the GPS coordinates into the URL. But if there's a way to do that natively, that would be huge. That would be awesome.
Yeah. So as long as you can get the data over MQTT into Home Assistant and then use a template to expose those entities, you should be okay.
Yeah, that will win you lots and lots and lots of brownie points, Phil, because there's a lot of folks that I know that makes them absolutely bananas.
Templates have frustrated me, so shout out if you want some help with that.
So I'll pass that up the food chain to the guys in the group, and we'll see what happens.
There you go.